Welcome back. In today's video, we'll be making this dresser from scratch. This is by far the biggest project I've worked on. I was a little hesitant in the beginning if I should take on something so big, but I thought to myself, if not now, then when? So with a bit of motivation from my wife, I decided to do it, and it turned out pretty well. Started off by going to the Home Depot and getting a 8x4 sheet of plywood cut into half so I could store it in my car. So here I am cutting the side pieces to length. I used my circular saw because I don't have a big enough table saw. For most of the project, I used pocket holes and glue wherever I could. So in this case, this is the top piece and the bottom piece, and I went ahead and made some pocket holes, and then I'm going to be using glue to put it all together. For added support, I cut a few plywood strips that I attached to the back and in the middle of the dresser, just so it would have a bit more rigidity. Initially, I had designed the dresser to have two support pieces on top and then a full sheet of plywood that would cover the entire top on top of those pieces. However, the plan changed later on, and you'll see that in the video. The next main task was to put together 5 drawers. So I took the plywood pieces that I had and I rough cut them to smaller pieces so I could cut them on my table saw for more accurate cuts. And then came the process of a lot of repeated cuts. A tip I have for you here is that the less you move your fence, the better. This way you can ensure that all your pieces are the same size. So before you start cutting, have a cut list, know exactly how many pieces you need. This will help putting all the drawers together. I don't think I have made as many pocket holes as I did for this project. The drawers alone were, I think, a total of 60 pocket holes. And I have a fairly small jig, so it took some time, but it was fun. Putting the drawers together was fairly straightforward. I just added some glue and then used those pocket holes that I had created to put everything together. Using 3¼ inch plywood, I think added a bit more sturdiness and strength to the entire drawers. So I would recommend 3/4 inch versus 1/2 inch. I also bought drawer slides from Amazon. I'll link them in the description below. They're pretty high quality. Installing the drawers is also a fairly straightforward process. I'm not going to go into detail as to how to install the drawers because there are many great videos out there. I'll link some in the description below for you to check out. But the main thing is you need some sort of spacer to make sure all the gaps in between are the same. So either use something you have at hand or cut something to the exact length that you need, but having a spacer will help you out immensely to make sure all the gaps are equal. And after everything's installed, this is one of the best feelings to put your first drawer in and seeing that everything fits well together. This is where I changed my plan and I decided to go with a full plywood top. So I removed that support piece I had on top and just replaced it with a full piece of plywood. Here I am cutting the bottoms of the drawer. I didn't have any more 3/4 inch plywood left and I didn't want to buy a new sheet just for the bottoms. So I had these 1/4 inch sheets of oak for the longest time that I haven't used them. So I went ahead and used that. I was a little hesitant. I don't know if it would hold up, but with a bit of glue and brad nails, it's holding up pretty well. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. The last bit before finishing was to make the drawer faces. For this I used 1-inch pine boards. The pine boards were not as wide as I needed them to be, so I got a bit creative here. In order to create handles, I cut out thin strips, I left a gap in the middle, and then I glued one on each side. And that sort of gave me a bit of a handle in the middle. Might not be the best way of going about this, but I was trying to be creative. I didn't want to go ahead and buy more wider boards. This worked out pretty well, as you'll see in the end. So finally, after the faces were done, I put the entire dresser on its back. I put a generous amount of glue on the false drawers, and then I went ahead and I glued the top, and I also brad nailed it. After the glue and brad nail, I screwed it all together. I did the same process for the remaining 4 drawers, added a spacer block for the middle just to make sure the spacing between the drawers was equal. I had left the drawer faces a bit oversized, so I came back with my router and a flush trim bit to make them even. Finally, it came time to sand, so I did 120 grit and then 220 grit, and then I went ahead and got some white furniture paint and then started painting. I was actually very impressed with the final product. It gave me a lot of confidence to take on more bigger projects in the future. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.